So for those of you that smoke, right? Do you think it was more fun getting geeked back in like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s or nowadays? Back in the day, if you wanted to get fried in like let's say like 1995, you for sure were gonna need papers, need a lighter, need weed. I don't know if they had pre-rolls back then, so you will need to roll. You were gonna need somewhere to smoke, and like the most importantly, you had to make sure you were somewhere your ass wasn't getting caught. And fast forward now to 2026, you can fucking pull out a thumb drive looking object and hit it and be geeked on Mars in 3, 4, 5 seconds. And the shit is just so convenient now. So it has to be better now, right? But the question is, has getting geek really gotten better over the years, or did convenience ruin like that entire excitement of the experience? So first things first, back in those days, bro, like the 80s and 90s or early 2000s, weed obviously was way more stigmatized. Of course, they had the war on drugs where they were painting anybody who smoked weed as like a fucking criminal, a deviant, a rebel. And then not only that, they had painted the entire picture that, of course, that whoever smokes weed, it makes you lazy or bum. You're gonna become a hippie and shit like that. And come to find out, 2026. First of all, most of the people that smoke weed are like the most chillest people on fucking earth. And then second, I'm not gonna say for everybody because of course there are probably some lazy ass people that smoke weed, right? But I know a lot of hardworking ass people that smoke weed on a daily. And of course, you gotta control the time you smoke because I wouldn't just go smoke a blunt right before work, even when I was smoking heavy. Like, you feel me? But some people do that, and I don't really feel like the weed is making those people lazy. I more like feel like a lazy person is smoking weed when it comes to that situation. And I feel like our parents growing up through this time period was the reason why we kind of were taught at a young age that weed is bad for you, don't smoke, blah, 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 blah. Because our parents literally grew up during the propaganda era where they kind of painted weed as the villain. And I'm not going to say weed is completely good for you or things of that nature, but the way they painted it made it seem like you were damn near doing crack cocaine. Another main difference is I feel like you needed an actual plug. And I'm not talking about how plugs are nowadays. I'm talking like back then, you like how you would meet that guy up the alleyway, pulls up in the trench coat, can't even see his face type shit. That's what I picture when I think of the weed man back in those times, bro. And then they lift up the fucking trench coat and they got a concession stand in the left and they got like every drug you need in the right. I feel like it definitely wasn't like that, but that's what I picture when I think of like buying copping back then. But yeah, nowadays, your plug sends you a menu. There's probably some fucking lame ass nerd that lives down the street from you that sells vapes, carts, and everything, and he tries to act hard, act like the plug, but really he's just a sherm ass jet. That's kind of the era we're living in now. I feel like honestly going through all that back then, the struggle of finding somewhere to smoke, making sure you don't get caught, meeting up with some scary ass creepy dudes that sketched out in a fucking alleyway. I feel like that played in a part where we kind of one had it gave us some anticipation for when we were getting fried, and two, you had to go through so much bullshit to even get fried or get geeked. You weren't doing this every day. Now shit has become so casual that you some people are getting high every single day from the morning to the night, which is insane. I feel like in the early 2000s, this is when shit kind of took a turn. It went from being like, oh yeah, weed is this dangerous drug that's gonna lead you to do this, this, and this, and become a criminal and a whole bunch of other nonsense. To like, yeah, weed. It's just somebody who likes getting high. They chill, but like you're still gonna be a lazy ass person. You're still not gonna do work. You're still gonna become a hippie. Honestly, I kind of feel like the early 2000s to maybe around, I'll say the cutoff maybe around like 2020. This is when we had the little sweet spot because it was still accessible that regular people that like me or high schoolers, whatever, we could go smoke, right? But then it still had that slight inconvenience where you still had to find a plug. You still had to hide that you were high just because of your parents, shit like that. It still had that inconvenience enough to still feel like smoking was an activity. You weren't just high, you were actually going to smoke. This is the main distinction of nowadays and back then. I feel like everything got fucked when the cart, dab pen, whatever the fuck you want to call it, spawned in. This shit changed the game. I like to call it the Steph Curry of getting geek because what this shit brought to the table, the convenience and the potency at the time. I don't know if it was because half these carts were fake and filled with pesticides and chemicals that was murdering our brain cells. But back in the day, this shit was smacking harder than any bud we could have smoked. I swear to God. Even to this day, Of course, I'll never say smoking a cart is way better than bud, right? Of course, I love bud way more, but the cart at that time, just like if I can compare bud to like a normal basketball player, and a cart to Steph Curry, I feel like when I hit the cart, I'm pulling a logo three, the amount, the highness, the level of high that I'm getting. Like I'm out of this world in the bathroom. I'm coming back to class. And I don't know how my teacher didn't notice that I was on 1 HP the whole class, but I promise you, bro, there was days that I was about to pass out if somebody didn't throw me a med kit. But no, for real, this shit went from literally that like something you plan out. Just like if you go hang out with your friends, go bowling or some shit. This should be some shit that we used to plan out. Like, hey, like, yo, y'all boys trying to smoke, and then you have to do all this shit to prepare. Then after that, you go guys gonna get y'all munchies or whatever. Y'all could kick it, look at the sky, whatever the fuck y'all did back then, right? But nowadays, it's like there's no reason for me to go plan to go get fried with somebody because, bro, most people who smoke are fried from the morning to the night. And of course, as you guys know from the first video on this topic, that I'm not like that anymore. But in general, this doesn't make sense for any stoners to be on that type of timing. Of course, it still happens. People still match this, match that. But back in the day, it was way more frequent. Another big thing about that is literally there's no real natural stopping point on a cart, bro. Because if you smoking a blunt or a joint, bro, that shit just naturally is just done. Soon as you get the cart, it's in your pocket all day, and you're smacking that shit like a million times until it's done. Then you just re up. And nowadays, the bud is like OP strong. We know about THC percentages. Like back then, we didn't even care about none of that shit. We just got what we got and basically didn't get upset. But now we got flour, stronger flour, concentrates, dabs, like carts, fucking edibles. Like it's insane. I don't know how, as a society, we made weed significantly stronger and easier to consume. Like, imagine liquor companies invented a vodka vape that you could hit at your desk without anybody knowing. Like, people would immediately recognize how insane that is for society. Like, we would be having people drunk driving all the time, just crashing out at work. But with weed, since it shows such mild symptoms, mild effects, we kind of brush it under the rug. Don't even get me started on dispensaries. That shit changed the whole vibe as well. Like I was saying, back in the day, it felt like when you had to cop, you had to pull up on a fucking guy in a trench coat, masked up, can't even tell who he is. Compared to now, you pull up in a fucking store, it looks kind of like the Apple store, and then somebody like greets you, it's like, "Good afternoon, like, would you want to try the new Galactic Gorilla Dick Hybrid?" And you have the percentages, the terpenes, you have fucking gummies, edibles, whole bunch of shit that's everywhere. It's literally an industry now. It's literally they found a way to kind of monetize it. So that's the reason why the stigma has changed so much because the government themselves have found a reason to make money off of it. And this flipped the entire stoner culture, smoker culture on its head because back then, being a smoker or a stoner, whatever you want to call it, it kind of felt like an identity. Now it's just like something everybody does. Like there's if you work at any job that doesn't drug test, there's 40% of people are in there geeked. If you're at the gym, bro, most people are in there geeked in some way or not. Anywhere if you're at a restaurant, you're at a park, you're playing basketball, everybody is either geeked or has some type of weed on them. And this shit became so normalized that it really doesn't even have a culture no more because it disappeared. It kind of just like it kind of gentrified into regular culture. So if you really think about how it was to be a smoker back then, even in the 2000s, even in the 2000 early 2010s, we've got to the point of the shit we used to dream about as smokers, how easy it is to access. The stigma has kind of been removed. Like we literally have all the advantages that previous generations would have dreamed about. We got the better weed, we got more variety. It's legal in mad places, and even if it's not 100% legal where you're at, it's like a misdemeanor in most places, right? It has more convenient consumption, way less stigma, but all this convenience comes with a cost. When getting geek required some type of effort, getting fried was the activity. But now when getting geek takes 2 seconds and becoming high becomes a default, that's where we start to connect it to tolerance. If you're hitting a pen in the morning, afternoon, and then the night, eventually being geeked isn't even really being geeked anymore. You're just living normal life. So yeah, we probably have the best weed humans ever had. When we can get it easier, smoke it easier, and get higher than the people 30 years ago could have ever imagined, I don't know if that means getting fried actually got better. Because maybe getting geek was more fun when sober was actually the default. But yeah, that's overly tacked, another food for thought. And we are out. Like, comment, subscribe.